One state or two state solution for an independent Palestine. Do the Palestinians want to coexist with Israel? President Biden last week, though nominally supporting Israel, is walking a tightrope with his divided party over the war in Gaza. As he negotiates for more military aid for Israel, he also declared that when the current conflict ends, the parties cannot return to the status quo, and a two-state solution must be pursued. The Palestinian issue has eluded a solution by all U.S. administrations since the founding of Israel in 1948. The preferred solution for most parties outside of Israel and Palestine, in the Palestinian-controlled territories of the West Bank and Gaza, is to create a two-state solution to settle the issue. However, will either party accept it, or is any state solution be acceptable to the Palestinians, since it would require Palestinians to accept the right of Israel to exist? The two-state solution is often discussed by pursuers of settling the Palestinian issue, but it's not really clearly defined or is purposely vague to create a roadmap to peace. The two-state solution has a number of iterations, but it basically follows this pattern. The two states, one is Israeli and one Palestinian. The Palestinians receive most of the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and parts of the Negev Desert. Jerusalem remains the capital of Israel. Israel is responsible for Palestinian security. Palestinians cannot sign security, intelligence, or military agreements with outside parties. Israel controls the airspace of Palestine. Israel receives the Jordan Valley and the West Bank for external security of the two states. Palestinians will be allowed to have access to the ports of Haifa and Ashdod. Existing Israeli or Palestinian settlements will not be relocated. Instead, land swaps between the parties will be facilitated. Jerusalem will be the undivided capital of Israel, and the Palestine can establish its capital in the suburbs of Jerusalem. Hamas must recognize Israel's right to exist and release all Israeli captives if it wants to be part of the peace process. Palestinian refugees can be absorbed by the Palestinian state. Both Israel and the Palestinians have rejected parts of this plan, and the Palestinians typically refuse to negotiate at all because they either expect Jerusalem to be their capital, or they interpret that depending on Israel for security compromises the sovereignty of a Palestinian state. This could at least be the points to negotiate and not be used as a reason not to negotiate. The other option is the so-called one-state solution, which is less realistic for both parties, but it does offer several options that could at least make it viable to negotiate. Below are some of the outlines of the one-state formula. One is the unitary state, which is a single state with equal rights for all subjects, regardless of ethnicity or religion. The other is that Israel annexes the West Bank and creates an autonomous region for the Palestinians. Another option is Israel becomes a federal republic with a central government that has federal districts, with some being Palestinian and some being Jewish, but all states participate in the federal system. Another option is Israel becomes a confederation of two autonomous states with one Palestinian and one Jewish, with just a few functions shared between the two parties, and it's a generally weak central government. The one-state solution received a boost when President Trump suggested as an option when the Palestinians refused to negotiate for peace. Instead, President Trump pursued the Abraham Accords, which Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner led. A larger Middle East peace was typically viewed that the Palestinian peace question had to be resolved before a peace between Israel and the fellow Sunni states could be pursued. The Abraham Accords unlinked the Palestinian peace and pursued peace and negotiations between Israel and the Gulf states. Once the Gulf states recognized and established relations with Israel, that would put pressure on the Palestinian authorities to come to the settlement with Israel as well. It was a pursuit of the Palestinian peace through indirect methods. The result would counterbalance against Iran, which also explains why Iran is so committed to preventing Saudi Arabia to join the Abraham Accords. This strategy was unfulfilled as the Biden administration dropped the Abraham Accord formula and instead pursued establishing closer ties with Iran and publicly shamed Saudi Arabia as a pariah state. That was a questionable policy since Saudi Arabia is the key player in the world oil market, and while the administration was rapidly draining the strategic oil reserves and trying to isolate another oil production country of Russia, the Biden administration put all its efforts to create closer ties to Iran and abandoned all other peace efforts in the region outside of giving additional money to the Palestinians and the Iranians, and giving Netanyahu government the cold shoulder. The Israeli-Hamas war in Gaza is at the stage where it could become a wider war, or the international pressure on Israel will force Israel to restore the status quo. The international community will slowly contribute to rebuild Gaza, and the cycle will repeat itself. There's no indication that despite Biden's call not to return to the status quo, the Palestinians will negotiate with Israel, even if the Netanyahu government eventually gets replaced in Parliament. Biden placed his faith in Iran, and like other U.S. presidents that put their faith in Iran, he got predictably burned, and the region is in another crisis.